A crazy day in Florham Park, New Jersey, to say the very least. The New York Jets pulled the trigger and fire general manager Joe Douglas as the team heads into the bye week with a disappointing 3-8 record. A lot of people were surprised. Was it the right move to do it in season? We'll talk about that and much more all here on a Tuesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Welcome in everyone. We are here on a Tuesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, and this is not a show I think I'd be having as we sit here on Tuesday, November 19th. Jets fire general manager Joe Douglas as the team heads into the bye week. A lot of people were surprised. We knew that, there was a large possibility that Douglas and the Jets would go their separate ways this offseason as Douglas' contract expired with the team, but it's a very interesting move for the team to pull the plug at this point in the season. Who better to bring on to talk all things New York Jets than Athlon Sports beat reporter Mr. Nick Faria. Join the show. Nick, it was a wild day, crazy day. How you doing?
How's everything going, Connor? Great to be back on.
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for coming on. I am super happy you are able to be here on this crazy yet wild day in Jetland. So, Nick, what are your just initial reaction on the move? I know a lot of people were surprised. Do you agree with the move coming at this point in the season? You're at the bye week. I don't. I know a lot of people weren't expecting it. Thoughts on the move, and does it make much of a difference that it happens now compared to 8 weeks from now?
So let's talk about if I'm surprised or not. No, this was going to happen eventually.
Yep.
Douglas was in the final year of his contract, and this was kind of set in stone when Robert Saleh was fired back in October. Starting 2-3, making a decision on the head coach and not the GM. Woody Johnson can say all he wants about this, how this was the most talented roster he's ever had in his 25 years here. But the writing was on the wall for Joe Douglas immediately when that decision was made. So it was just a matter of time. And as the losing continued, what Johnson made this decision, it essentially is, I want to get started on the GM search right now. I want to get a month of preparation to see which teams are doing it the best in their front office, who are the up-and-coming leaders of the front offices around the league. So to me, it's not so much that this was a surprise. It was just a matter of when. Joe Douglas did a lot of good here for New York, objectively. He brought in a lot of young pieces. This team is a more attractive job now than it was when Douglas took over in 2019. There's a lot more blue-chip talent on this roster, and they were able to hit on some draft picks. They were, objectively. 2022, 2023, some really good players have come from those drafts. But by and large, GMs are graded on the head coach they bring in and the quarterback they bring in. And unfortunately for Joe Douglas, he failed on both of those counts. Robert Saleh, unable to put forth a winning season, even just win more than 7 games. And then, of course, you have the Zach Wilson debacle, falling in love with a project of a quarterback with the 2nd overall pick, getting rid of Sam Darnold to essentially give Zach Wilson the keys. And then when that didn't work, you had Aaron Rodgers. No one's going to fault the Jets for going big with the Rodgers trade, but it did not work out. And when all 3 of those things don't work out, it's only a matter of time before the GM is next on the chopping block, and that's exactly what happened here.
Now, you mentioned Rodgers there, Nick. What do you expect to happen with Rodgers this offseason? Do you think he comes back and plays in the 2025 season? Do the Jets go ahead and draft a quarterback? What do you think happens overall at the quarterback position for the Jets this offseason?
So it's going to depend on who becomes general manager of this team, whether it's someone who feels that drafting a quarterback in the 2025 class is worth it, whether someone wants to punt 2025 and draft a quarterback for 2026. A lot of scouts that I've talked to have said the 2026 class is better overall as an overall unit. So we will wait to see in terms of the executive that gets hired in this position. But by and large, I think this is the end for Aaron Rodgers. He made a point last week that he wanted stability. He wanted continuity. He liked Joe Douglas. He came to New York in part because of Joe Douglas. He liked what the plan was for Douglas and Saleh, and now both are gone. All the moves that the Jets have made to make Rodgers comfortable have not worked out. And this was a move. Firing Joe Douglas before the season ends is essentially a shot and a sign to Aaron Rodgers, essentially, listen, buddy, we're no longer placating your needs. We're going to do what's best for this organization, and that does not have you in our future plans.
Now, Nick, I know you released an article, your top 5 GM candidates for next season with your honorable mentions. For those who didn't read your article, who'd you have? Who do you think is the Jets' best option here as we do, some early evaluations? I'm working on a huge one right now for Jets X Factor, and I'll admit, I've only gotten a few people deep. The guys I have in right now, Ray Agnew, Ed Dodds, Ian Cunningham, Mike Borgonzi, and Duke Tobin. So those are the guys I've gotten to, and I'm planning to get a lot further in the next few days. But who do you like the most for that position? And the head coach position as well. Who do you see taking that job? Is it going to be a young coordinator like Ben Johnson? Is it going to be an experienced guy like Mike Vrabel? I know there's a lot of Rex talk. So what are you feeling right now in the GM position and the head coach job?
Well, relationships are key when we talk about these kind of hires. And right now, there's only one executive, in my opinion, that has a relationship with someone in this Jets organization and someone who comes with a lot of pedigree, and that's Agnew from Detroit. His son, I believe, is a scout on the team. There's a chance that he could want to come here in the first place and run this team. Maybe there's an enticement if they hire Agnew. They may be able to get Ben Johnson to come here as well. That seems a little far-fetched, but overall, the relationships in this league matter. Agnew's certainly one guy. You look at other executives around the league. I mentioned Borgonzi in Kansas City on my list. Ray Shout in Cleveland. I think a couple of underrated guys are Brandon Brown, the assistant GM of the Giants, who is very well regarded in NFL circles. Just because it hasn't worked out for the Giants does not mean it can't work out for Brown. And, of course, the assistant GM for the Eagles, Alec Hallaby. A lot of teams nowadays are going with analytical approaches to how they build rosters. And Hallaby has close to 2 decades worth of experience in Philadelphia with not only just the analytical side of things, but also the scouting side. That was his one weakness over the last few years, and he's really kind of gelled that up. So there's a lot of underrated names the Jets could go on. Another person to look out for is Will McClay, the vice president of player personnel for the Dallas Cowboys. He's in my honorable mentions, mostly because I have no idea if he wants to actually leave Dallas, because it really sounds like every single time he's a favorite for a job, Jerry Jones comes in with a few extra million, and that sort of goes away. So it really depends on what the Jets want. Do they want to build a team that is focused primarily on offense, primarily on making sure they get the quarterback right? If so, some of these assistant GMs with a background in scouting quarterbacks will be at the top of their list. If not, if it's about building the team and finding a well-rounded coach, then you'll probably go for other guys in that regard. But it all depends who is eventually hired, and no one can tell us that except the Johnsons.
Everyone, smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Really appreciate all the support on this Tuesday evening show. Nick, we spoke a little about drafting the quarterback. Firing Joe Douglas midway through the season pretty much signals this team wants to go in full rebuild mode right now. Last time the Jets did that, 2022, they traded for Aaron Rodgers. They thought they were one piece away. Traded for him in 2023. Didn't seem to be the case. Now you look, what do the Jets do with this rebuild? How long do you think they take it? Do they, take their time like they should have done last time around, in my opinion? Or are they going to try to take a shortcut? How long does this take? When do they, realistically start the rebuild? Are they going to, try to eat a lot of the dead cap money next year and have that be the first year of the new regime?
Well, I will say they can compete next year without a problem. They need good coaching.
Wow.
They need good coaching, and they're going to have to figure out the quarterback position. But even if you get a bridge starter, a guy that can go out there and throw for 200 yards, not turn the ball over, move the offense into scoring position, and score touchdowns in the red zone, you're going to be able to compete in this league. I mean, the AFC right now, the Denver Broncos are shocking everyone. The Pittsburgh Steelers are shocking everyone with how they're playing. And I think objectively there is a path for the Jets competing, but they need to get the coaching right. They absolutely do. Good coaching can sort of mitigate mediocre play at times. I mean, look at Sean McDermott in the Denver Broncos. His first year, Tyrod Taylor's the quarterback.
That's what I was just about to say.
So it's kind of crazy to think about. So if the Jets nail this coaching hire right, it all changes. Now, I do think there is some credence to eating and biting the bullet and dead cap charges in 1 year and sort of moving forward in better light. But even so, even if they eat up all those dead cap charges, they still will have around $50 to $60 million in cap space. That is a lot of money to spend. not just re-signing players that you feel are going to be part of your core, like Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner and Brees Hall, but also going out and getting free agents as well. This is all about the culture and setting a winning culture up. Look at what Adam Peters did down in Washington, where the Commanders, we can make the joke that they were even more of a dumpster fire than the Jets over the last few years with all the off-field scandals from their ownership group. But then this new ownership group comes in, hires Adam Peters. He makes a lot of free agent deals that are short-term and then has a fantastic draft. And now look, Washington is in a playoff spot right now. Really an incredible turnaround. So really, you get the good executive, you get the right executive, you get the right coach, and everything can fall into place because this is not a team devoid of talent by any stretch. You've got Garrett Wilson. You got Brees Hall. The offensive line is greatly improved. John Simpson turned out to be a really good signing by Joe Douglas. You've got a lot of good young players on the offensive line. Defensively, yes, you lost a lot of talent on the defensive line, but Will McDonald and Quinnen Williams are still here. You still have Sauce and Michael Carter. Quincy Williams is still locked up. There are plenty of players on this team to succeed. Do you have the coach to put it all together? That's the question. That is something that the Jets sorely missed in 2024 to this point.
Now, Cuca Lake Jet fan comes in the chat, and he's going to bash Joe Douglas in here. Joe D made these choices and missed on a ton of picks. Destroyed the D-line, picked the wrong QB, picked Becton, and picked the staff. That failed. Nick, we've seen now the Saleh firing, didn't really give the, not only the fan base, but the organization the results that they desired when that occurred. Now, people are saying Saleh was made as a scapegoat. Do you think Douglas is the one to blame? I know you voiced your opinion there, but what are your thoughts? Is he the one to blame? Who's the main culprit that the fan base must pinpoint for this disaster?
Everyone. There's no one person that gets absolved here. I mean, Robert Saleh wasn't absent from his mistakes. He was a very poor in-game manager. He was very bad at getting his team up for some games. You look at how flat they looked against the Minnesota Vikings. The inexcusable loss to the Denver Broncos at the time. Yes, that loss looks a lot better now, but you didn't score a touchdown. That doesn't take away from that fact. So the fact that this team came out so flat under Robert Saleh does not absolve him just because they are losing even worse without him here. Joe Douglas, like we said, and Lake Jet fan kind of points this out, he failed a lot. He is not absolved from this. Aaron Rodgers is not absolved from this. He wanted his guys, and his guys have failed miserably. Yes. And then, of course, at the top of the list, when you have an owner like Woody Johnson, James Dolan with the Knicks and Rangers, he was considered one of the worst owners in basketball and hockey. And then he hired the right people, and the right people turned it around. Does that make him a great owner all of a sudden? That's for everyone else to decide. But the Johnson family has not picked the right people, and that is a reflection of them messing this whole thing up as well. So there is no one absolved from this mess. Everyone has a part to play in it. Player development, rookies, coaches, general managers, the decision-making process, everything about it is rotten to the core, and that's why you need new leadership from top to bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, who predicted a 3-8 start for the Jets? I mean, everything was in line. I thought the Jets had a better chance of starting the season 8-3, a lot higher than a 3-8 start to the season. Now we're sitting here at the bye week. The fan base is going crazy. Nick, as someone who's in the building quite often as a beat reporter, how are players viewing these final games of the season? I saw SNY's Connor Hughes report that the players are, quote, checked out. A source told him, how do you think players are going to view this final stretch of games coming up with the team, basically eliminated from playoff contention?
It's flight or fight now. It really is, because you're going to have some players who are free agents after this season who are going to have to find a new team to play for, like DJ Reed. He's still looking for a long-term deal. Is he going to give up on this season and show low character? What team would want him if he just quits on the season like that? That's a legitimate question. You got CJ Mosley. What's going to happen with him? A lot of these younger players that are hitting free agency, they have a lot to prove still. And then on top of that, you've got a young core that has to prove that they can, A, be good leaders, and B, be worthy enough to this new executive team that they are worthy of long-term deals. So there is still plenty to play for for this locker room. Whether they're checked out or not, it doesn't matter. This is fight or flight mode now. And if the Jets don't fight, a lot of players are not going to be happy with the way their contracts look in free agency.
You mentioned the free agency class here. Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot a bit. I'm going to read you the Jets' top free agents this offseason. I want you to tell me, who do you think is going to come back? Who do you think is going to walk? They have a ton, but here are the top ones. Irv Charles, Tony Adams, Brendan Eccles, let's see, Michael Carter II, Jamie Sherwood. Let's see who else notable.
Well, Carter signed his extension.
Oh, well, yeah, my bad. Carter signed the contract for 3 years, $70 million right before the season starts, so he's exempt from that list. But let's see who else. Who else notable is on here? Chuck Clark is another one. DJ Reed, you mentioned. Isaiah Oliver, he's done a lot for this team this season. Ashton Davis, another safety. Solomon Thomas, Morgan Moses, Tyron Smith, Tyler Conklin, Javon Kinlaw, just among the notable names there for the Jets free agency class. Out of those guys, who do you think are the main players that are going to come back, and who do you think really walks this offseason?
I think there's a chance the Jets try to bring back Morgan Moses. I think there's a chance they try to bring back Tyler Conklin. I think there's a good possibility they're able to re-sign Jamie Sherwood, and I think there will be a flyer taken back out for Chuck Clark. Everyone else, I think, is probably on the way out, including DJ Reed, including Solomon Thomas, including Javon Kinlaw, a lot of these guys. And it's going to be up to the main executive, the new head honcho, to determine what kind of team they want to build. Is it a team built through the trenches? Is it a team built through the defensive line? Those are questions remain to be seen. But as of right now, I can think of only maybe 3 or 4 players that are going to be retained at some point this offseason. Put me on the spot right now. Maybe my answer in a month. But right now, I would say Sherwood, Conklin, maybe Morgan Moses, and Chuck Clark.
Now, for the rest of those guys, someone like DJ Reed, you think if the Jets could go back in time, they didn't sign, Michael Carter II to that lucrative 3-year, $70 million deal right before the season starts. Carter's someone whose 2024 campaign's just been riddled with injuries. This ankle injury hasn't really kept him off the field, missing full games, but it's really lingered and it's, showed in his play. You think if they could go back, they would have rather retained Reed than signing Carter to that huge deal?
No, Carter is a homegrown talent.
Yep.
And you ask any executive, you want to re-sign your good homegrown talents. He's one of the better slot corners in the league.
Stuff, yeah.
So to me, you want to retain those guys. I don't see anything wrong with his contract. It's not like it's an albatross or what the Jets want to do in 2025. That was a no-brainer move to me, having Carter over DJ Reed.
And then, you said Jamie Sherwood. You think he comes back with Brendan Eccles is another one who's been here for the majority of his career. He's a depth piece. Thoughts there?
No, I think Eccles will probably go because he'll want to play more minutes. I mean, he's the only one with interceptions on this team right now, which is just crazy.
2 interceptions.
Incredible, but I think he's going to want more playing time. He's shown that he's worthy of potential starter minutes. And then Jamie Sherwood, listen, I don't see C.J. Mosley returning next year. I mean, there's a chance he could retire. Father Time is undefeated in that regard. And I like the way Sherwood's played. I think he's been perfectly solid as a starting linebacker. His grades are pretty solid in both run and pass. Does he have things to improve on? Of course. But so does everyone else on this defense. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Jets to try to re-sign him and move forward with that because, listen, you can give C.J. Mosley his new you can give him a new contract. You can keep him on for another season. But at the end of the day, it just comes back to, do you want to pay a 30-plus-year-old linebacker on a new regime? Once again, it just doesn't make much sense when you've got a young gun waiting in the wings.
Nick, I'll pull up one more comment here. And we do have a call waiting before we let you go. Sorry, you have a few more minutes here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. So I see a comment here from our guy Barney Miller tuning in. Bench Sauce gives Stiggers some minutes. I know that might be a bit of an exaggeration here, Nick, on the show, but Sauce is someone who's gonna probably press for that $28 to $30 million range for his contract when he comes up. The Jets do have a 5th-year option on him since they have the option to place the 5th-year option on him because he was a first-round pick. What do you think the Jets do there? Do they extend him? Because I think everything we've seen from him really this season is pointed otherwise.
Yeah, I think what'll happen is they don't give him the extension, but I do think they will. They will activate his 5th-year option when they possibly can, and then they want to see how he does in this new defense, in this new regime, whoever's the head coach, whoever's the executive. I'm not saying bench him, and I'm not saying he's been good this year. Based on what we expect of him, it's been a nightmare season. But at the same time, it's not as atrocious as people want to make it. He's not some terrible cornerback. He's a player that I think is dealing with a confidence buster where he's just struggling right now mentally. And he's got to work through it. He's got to move past these struggles. He's been told he's the best cornerback in college and the NFL now for the last 4 years. Now, all of a sudden, he's not that way. So he's got to go back to his fundamentals. I think he'll be a lot better next season with proper coaching and a proper scheme that fits him. I'm not getting rid of Sauce Gardner just yet. I think that would be extremely foolish. But that doesn't mean I'm giving him a long-term extension after year 3. I'm perfectly fine saying, let's see how he does going into year 4 before we give him that long-term extension.
Nick, really appreciate you joining me. Everyone, smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Appreciate you all tuning in here on a very eventful day in Jetland. Nick, any final thoughts?
The night is darkest just before the dawn, I believe the quote was. And I will say it looks pretty bleak right now for the Jets. But all it takes is one person, one executive, one head coach, and everything turns around. It's been a long time. And there's been a lot of guys coming in, filling out here and there, where they just are blown up to smithereens and they can't handle what the Jets are need. But eventually this is going to turn around, and Jet fans should be excited when it does.
Nick, where can everyone find your incredible work?
Nick_Faria 1720. That's my Twitter handle. Make sure you guys give me a follow. And, of course, as always, appreciate the stuff. Make sure you guys read Connor stuff as well. It's
Thank you.
Yeah, just follow on Twitter. I try to be as active as possible there.
Everyone, thank you guys for tuning in. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That'll do it for us. Nick Faria, Connor Long, signing off. JTS Jets, Jets, Jets.